The Science of Mindfulness by Venerable Rungruong Pa Pasaro, Dr. Rungruong Lim Chu Patipa. The Buddha discovered that life was the stream of consciousness, and each time when being conscious to acknowledge on the incoming mental object such as a stimulus from the world, it functioned in a pulse rhythm when fetching a particular object of consciousness one at a time. While having consciousness, mindfulness is the ability of mind to be aware of what is about on the object of consciousness. The mindfulness make us having an acknowledge of what is happening in the world through the 6 sense bases, including knowing the postures of body, the body movement, body breathing, and the states of mind when feeling happy or painful, what the mind is thinking about, and even the series of dependent states of mind in terms of mind processing. Therefore, from a hypothetical induction, if we have mindfulness at every times when having consciousness throughout stream of consciousness, then we can be aware of what is happening within mind processing in the process of dependent origination. The mindfulness is preliminarily a data collection engine before being developed to be a cognition in the cognitive process of mind. The Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi explains the meaning of the word sati, or mindfulness in the book, The Buddha's Word, as follows.
The word sati originally meant memory, but at the present context it signifies recollection of the present, a sustained awareness of what is happening to us and within us on each occasion of experience. Mindfulness, in its initial stages, is concerned with keeping the contemplative mind continually on its object, which means keeping the object continually present to the mind. Mindfulness prevents the mind from slipping away, from drifting off under the sway of random thoughts into mental proliferation and forgetfulness. Mindfulness is often said to occur in close conjunction with clear comprehension, a clear knowledge and understanding of what one is experiencing.
The most breakthrough takeaway of sati was when the Buddha realized the application of sati at the present moment with mindful and clear comprehending to keep the contemplative mind continually on its object, which means keeping the object continually present to the mind in insight observation on the day of the Buddha's enlightenment as follows.
Could there be another path to enlightenment? I considered. I recall that when my father the Sakyan was occupied, while I was sitting in the cool shade of a rose apple tree, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, I entered and dwelled in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought and examination, with rapture and happiness born of seclusion.
Usually, when recalling something in the past, the longer the time delay after the incident is, the less clarity of memory will be, and in this circumstance additional data of internal emotional formations may be added into the realization. Therefore, by shortening the time delay to the limit of present time with the incident, the realization of what is happening will be very clear and accurate. The Buddha utilized this special sati at the present moment to be aware of insight of mind processing which led to the enlightenment. The word sati originally meant memory as the ability to recall of what was happening in the past. During the course of the Buddha enlightenment, the Buddha discovered that by establishing sati at the present moment, the mind would be mindful with clear comprehending to see the Dharma of insight which led to the path for enlightenment. The Buddha discovered that by having the continuance of mindfulness, then the mind with internally steadied, unified, composed, and concentrated will empower the mindfulness to be sensitive enough to observe the object of consciousness with mindful and clear comprehending and insight. And this is the way to activate the acknowledge element of life to gain the knowledge or the Dharma, which is called the cognitive process of mind in instructed cognition. As been confirmed by in Richard Davidson's study that in each round of the routine of consciousness, there is a part of the mind will shift to become aware of the new arrival object of consciousness stage. This is a special state of mindfulness that the mind become aware of the new arrival object of consciousness. And if we can make use of mindfulness in the continuance of mindfulness to observe the changing of the continuance of consciousness, then we can monitor the mind processing and maneuver the brain pathway of nervous processing. Although mindfulness may be a part of the routine in consciousness, but mostly it is not sensitive enough to comprehend the object of consciousness clearly, and often respond to the object of consciousness wrongly, especially assuming that there is a self to be emotionally involved with the objection of consciousness. Therefore, the focus in the early stage of the Buddhist practice is fully dedicated to mindfulness development in order to strengthen up the quality of mindfulness to be sensitive enough to detect even an individual object of consciousness. The mindfulness is required to be active throughout the Buddhist practice in saying, establishing mindfulness in front, at all time. All of mindfulness practices such as the mindfulness breathing, the walking up and down with mindfulness, and the mindfulness posturing, are intended to initiate the awareness of the arrival object of consciousness at the present moment at all time, so that we can be familiar with the mindfulness establishment in everyday life. The sati in this Buddhist application is the awareness at the present moment on the object of consciousness when the information of incident exhibits the most clear and accurate phenomenon as it really is. The Buddha utilized this special quality of sati at the present moment to detect what was going on at the moment of the arising of the object of consciousness. This clear comprehension activated the acknowledgement element of life leading to enlightenment as a way to guide the mind processing into the right pathway of life, so that the right action will be taken in responding to the world at all time. In everyday life of the modern world, our mind is receiving a tremendous information. Some are real, but many of them are fake news. Since the mind is easily dominated by greed, hatred, and delusion, and often our emotional actions are not correct, leading to evil karma. Therefore, it is very necessary for being a good life by establishing mindfulness with careful attention to acknowledge arriving stimuli from the world, and to understand the world rightly before taking any karma responding to the world. The emphasis of Buddhism is to study on the truths of life within nature, so that the mind will be able to adopt the learning dharma in coping with the complexities of the world. During the Buddhist practice, we will learn on how to apply the mindfulness to guide the mind into the right processing. And also during the Buddhist practice, the mindfulness will be improved in terms of quality to be powerful enough to observe the insight of the mind to cognize the interconnecting activities inside the mind in order to gain the knowledge of the principle and the entailment for the implementation to destruct all the taints inside the mind processing. The accomplishment in Buddhism begin with the establishment of mindfulness, and then utilizing this mindfulness in several applications throughout the Buddhist studies. The word Buddha technically means a person to be awakened, that is, being the one who is awakened with mindfulness at all times. And according to this context, a Buddhist is supposed to be the one who has consciousness with mindfulness. In addition to the knowledge of the truths of life within nature, the technique to learn the truths of nature in the Buddhist practice is considered as another important factor in introspective learning. William James highlighted the emerging of mindfulness as a wandering attention factor in Buddhism to be the foundation of judgment, character, and will in the principles of psychology as follows.
The faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character, and will.
Mindfulness in Buddhism. Technically, mindfulness arises when having consciousness. The mind has an acknowledged element of being aware of what is happening in the world. This special capability of knowing what is happening by consciousness is specifically called mindfulness. That is, the mind becomes mindful to have a clear comprehension on the object of consciousness. Therefore, theoretically, mindfulness will arise simultaneously with consciousness. And by having mindfulness, the mind will be able to be aware of what's happening, including the truths of the world and what is happening inside the mind as well. In neuroscience, we discover that mindfulness is a state of mind that is activated in the area of anterior cingulate cortex of the prefrontal cortex of the central nervous system. This special part of brain functions to be alert, that is, to have a selective attention on something at the present moment when the mind will make interactions with the world through the 6 sense bases. During this mind processing, neurons at hippocampus, where storing memory as the informative cognition of latent dispositions, and neuron networks at amygdala, that function the emotional drives of taints, with the production of future renewed existence, while neurons at the area of dorsolateral prefrontal cortex performs motivational execution of volitional formations, so-called thinking, in the process of dependent origination. The unwholesome thought in Buddhism can be explained as struggling emotional pathways from amygdala and hippocampus that responds to a receiving stimulus with the varieties of defilements, starting from taint as the finest defilement, then it is increasingly aggravated to be the middle defilement of unwholesome thought, and then become rough defilements, with greed, hatred, and delusion before bursting out into wrong action responding to the world. Clearly, the complexity of troubling mind is aggravated by the process of volitional formations of the mind. There is no such a self, to be good or bad, but it is the mind processing that complicates the decision of the mind to be either wholesome or unwholesome. From neuroscience perspective, we discover that the insula area in the central nervous system is a junction around anterior cingulate cortex where connects all the signals from 6 sense bases including from an inner brain before passing any signal into prefrontal cortex. In 2011 at Harvard Medical School, Sarah Larzar conducted an experiment on 20 skillful mindfulness meditation practitioners with fMRI study on how the mind functions by taking the images of the brain activities during having consciousness, and she found that there were 2 areas inside the brain at the cortex of practitioners that are significantly active from other parts of brain. That is, the region in the right-hand side of prefrontal cortex, that are essential for making decision and linking of memory to sensory input that becomes more active in a larger area. Also, the other region in the insula area, which involves with sensation and emotion, such as empathy and kindness of practitioners, indicate higher in activities. And if we agree that the practice of mindfulness meditation will enhance the mindfulness, then evidently the insula area, where is the junction area of connecting signals from the brain before entering into the prefrontal cortex, is a potential candidate of mindfulness.